Good afternoon, Bucknutters. Welcome to What We Learned Live following Ohio State's 45-0 win over visiting Purdue. I am Dave Biddle. I'll be joined by Heath Schneider. I'll be joined by Matt Baxendell, Patrick Murphy, and Steve Helwagen. Welcome to the show. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. I mean, that was exactly what we wanted to see. You know, near perfect performance as far as like you get out of the game unscathed injury-wise, as far as we know. 45-0 when you're favored by 38. You wonder, after an emotional win last week, is Ohio State going to have a letdown factor? And they came out maybe a little sluggish, but boy, did they turn it on. And nice job out of the Buckeyes, 45-0 over Purdue. Again, exactly what we wanted to see on many facets. Let's start with, we learned a lot of stuff today. We learned Edric Houston got his first collegiate start and was playing good until he had a boneheaded penalty. That'll cost you if you're a true freshman. It'll cost you if you're a senior captain, but if you're a true freshman, they're giving you the benefit of the doubt and you do something like that, that's going to cost you. But I'm very high on Edric Houston. Really says a lot that he got his first start today. Obviously, they could have had Tyleik Williams out there. He was not on the availability report, meaning Tyleik Williams was cleared to play medically, but why chance it? And then you're thinking, well, probably Hero Canu's going to get the start at 3 tech because they do the 3 tech, 1 tech. Even though I think it should just been Caden McDonald in there starting next to Ty Hamilton. It is what it is, but Edric Houston got the start over Hero Canu, and I thought Edric Houston looked good, except for that freshman mistake he made with the penalty. A blocked punt. We've been talking about the return game and how they haven't returned a touchdown in a long time, and they haven't, and they still haven't. But, how about the blocked punt? We haven't seen a blocked punt in a while, so good on Caden Curry getting the blocked punt. Caden Curry looks good on defense as well. I found this very interesting. So Ohio State now, when they have a 4th down conversion attempt, they're now 11 of 12 if they get that 4th down of scoring a touchdown later in that drive. So if Ohio State has a 4th down conversion on a drive and they pick up the 1st down, over 90% of the time they're scoring a touchdown later on that drive. Could be at midfield on a 4th and 2, could be anything. But if they have a 4th down, they're being very aggressive, which I love on 4th down. They're going with the analytics, and it's not a big of a risk as people make it seem like sometimes. It's usually it's more of a big risk to punt and go against the math. We're just so used to what we've watched for football for years. But if you go by the math, I mean, the analytics are what they are. And going for it on 4th down is actually a smart move. And Ohio State has bought into that, and it's paying off big time for them. So good to see them be aggressive. How about Jim Knowles? And is there any doubt now this is Jim Knowles' defense? We learned this is Jim Knowles' defense. I mean, we saw the jack with Mitchell Melton. Mitchell Melton, I mean, this looks like an Oklahoma State defense when they were like number 3 in the nation, wherever he had them at, except way better athletes. And are they perfect? No. There are times you're like, oh, man, missed tackle there. But then they step it up, though. They step it up. Even like backups, third stringers. Gabe Powers flashes every time I see him. I know it was late in the game, but I'm like, who just declated that guy? Oh, yeah, Gabe Powers. So impressed. Jermaine Matthews playing a lot. Jermaine Matthews looking good. I tell you what, this is definitely Jim Knowles' defense. And I don't know what took 2.5 years for it really to be he's the head coach of the defense, but he's definitely the head coach of the defense now. So I thought Will Howard played good once again. Thank goodness. Some of these injuries we saw, like Carson Hinsman, we're like, oh, goodness gracious, here we go again. Thank goodness he's okay. Seyerveld was the first guy in the game as expected, but good thing that Carson's not hurt. Donovan Jackson played great again. And then Will Howard before the half looked like he maybe sprained a knee or something. That was probably just he was maybe precautionary. He's fine. So, again, this is really the perfect outcome if you're an Ohio State fan because you win 45-0. As far as I know, we'll find out more. You get out unscathed as far as injuries with 3 games now left in the regular season. I tell you what, this defense just continues to build more and more and more momentum. Jeremiah Smith broke all of Chris Carter's records, as we all knew was going to happen if he stayed healthy. After the week 1, we pretty much knew if he stayed healthy, he was going to break them. Man, and he just looks good doing it, doesn't he? It's not just he's a product of the system. It's geez. He looks like Jamar Chase after he catches the ball. And Jamar Chase is 6 foot, 201 pounds. I love Jamar Chase. Right now, he's the best wide receiver in the NFL, along with his guy, Justin Jefferson. But I think anybody would agree right now Jamar Chase is the best wide receiver in the NFL. All right, Jeremiah Smith is a true freshman, and when he catches the ball, he's 6'3". They say 6'3". He's probably closer to 6'4". He's at least 6'3 and a half, 215, 218 pounds, and he runs like Jamar Chase, maybe faster. And Jamar Chase, as I said, is the best receiver in the NFL right now. I'm talking about a true freshman. Of course, we're comparing him to Chris Carter and Jamar Chase. No pressure, young man, no pressure. But love what I'm seeing. And Carnell Tate, can we talk about Carnell Tate? The best number 3 wide receiver in the country. It's almost a crime calling him a number 3 wide receiver. Love Carnell Tate. So just a lot of great things going. Travion Henderson looked great. Good to see Emeka get a touchdown. Good to see Jack Sawyer get a touchdown. By the way, how about the 5-star defensive ends that get a lot of crap from fans and media and podcasters? JTT causes the fumble. Sawyer picks it up and runs it in for a touchdown. I love to see that. Another thing I love to see is my man in Amsterdam, Heath Schneider. Heater. I tell you what, man, that's exactly what I wanted to see.
Absolutely, right? I just wrote about it in my immediately after the game analysis. You can only play the games that are and the teams that are on your schedule. Purdue fits that, and you did exactly what you wanted to do. You got out of there without injuries. You stayed sharp and focused, and you got some rest for your starters so the backups could get some experience as well. All of that is a beautiful thing. And it was really from the first gun all the way through, from the opening kick all the way through. Would have liked to have seen some production from the backups, Saban, Brown, etc., and 0 for 1 and 0 for 4. But now I'm really, really nitpicking if I get to it. Excellent of you to bring up the JTT. Boy, he just looks like he's having so much more fun in this more freelance, this less antiquated style of defense that they're playing Saban right now. And he's really, really enjoying it. You can tell he is not a cage rusher by nature. And for him to be able to freelance a little bit more and have a little more indirect routes to get pressure on, to get in, he's really starting to make a difference. I have never been a guy that's in the antiquated defense kind of mode. I mean, when you're the top defense in the nation over a 2-year span for yards given up and for points, are you really antiquated? No. And I get the opposing side of that where, hey, against the really, really good teams, you're giving up a lot more. Well, yeah, that's kind of the nature of football. If you play a really good team, there's a reason that Georgia and Alabama had a 42-38 or whatever the game score was. It's because it's 2 really good football teams, and you give up a lot of points. We had a really good defense in 2014. We played Alabama. It was a ridiculous. There were 70 points scored in the game. That's how it works. But that's me.
You mentioned Saban. Obviously, it was mostly the result against Oregon. That was what really caused them to re-engineer the defense, as what Ryan Day said. How much, in your opinion, Heater, did the GOAT? Because if it was anybody else coming out saying, yeah, Ohio State's pass rush is antiquated, they'd be like, this guy didn't know what he's talking about. He's not in the building. But when the GOAT says it, and the GOAT is a defensive coach, how much do you think that got Ohio State's attention? And Ryan Day agreed with him, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, especially we're talking about the guy who's the GOAT and not 10 years removed from the game, right? This isn't a guy. This is a guy that, 9 months ago was still coaching, or 10 months ago was still coaching. And so you have to give some knowledge to it, or some tipping of the hat to him and say, yeah, I get it. And that's just going to do nothing but bring pressure. And by the way, Jim Knowles handled it really well on his side, right? He said, well, he kind of a really good coach, kind of knows what he's talking about. Let's listen to him when asked in the press conference. So he didn't try to fight it. He didn't try to beat down Saban as, just some sort of know-nothing commentator. How could you? And I think it really got attention to Ryan Day, and you see the results of it now. They really look like they're hitting on all cylinders.
So Edric Houston got the start the 3-tech, and I thought he looked great for a true freshman until he made a true freshman mistake. Your thoughts on Ed? But I'm high on. I think that says a lot about the young man that they moved him to 3-tech, and Eileek was out today, and they could have used Hero Canoe there. They could have they end up putting Tywone Malone in after, the penalty. But like Edric Houston, it says a lot that he got the start. He looked good. He'll learn from that mistake. But man, that was a bad mistake.
It was a bad mistake. And in a game that you may play against Indiana coming up, where you expect a tougher game now, you can't make that kind of stuff. You had a 40 at that point, what, a 21-point cushion, I think at that point. Might have been 14. I don't remember. Either way, you knew you were going to win today. It's a stupid freshman mistake. I think it's interesting they went with him. You make a great point. It kind of, not the same situation, but it kind of reminds me of when Bobby Carpenter got hurt and you went to this no-name guy who's the linebackers coach now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just unexpected for him to come in and hold his own as an untested guy, and then comes in and holds his own, and who knows what the future holds. For James Laurinaitis, it wound up being the most decorated linebacker of all time at Ohio State.
And Anthony Schlegel he was starting anyway, but Anthony Schlegel played great in that 2005 Ohio State-Michigan game. We'll always remember that game as Troy Smith bringing them back, rightfully so. The catch from Gonzo, the two drives, they're down by 9 with 6 minutes left or whatever, and Troy released them down 2 drives, touchdown drives. They win it with Pittman, basically a walk-off touchdown. But Anthony Schlegel played his butt off in that game. Love Schlegs. Julian
absolutely did. I had just gotten back from Afghanistan, and that was the first Ohio State game I had gone to since my return, and wound up getting tickets, went up to Ann Arbor for it, and celebrated in the stands, as you had to stand sideways because they paint the seats this close together on the bleachers.
The toilet bowl. Yes.
I'm not a tiny guy, but man, few could fit in that.
All right, we'll get you out here in this. What are your parting thoughts? Just give us a synopsis on your immediately after the game analysis. It's must-read material. Get on Bucknuts and read that. We're going to bring in Matt Baxendell in just a moment. Heater, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. Just anything you want to say from your post-game analysis?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, last week I got a lot of not a lot of hate mail, but a little bit of, man, your hate for Will Howard is showing. You never give Will Howard a break. I have never been easy on Will Howard, but I wasn't easy on CJ Stroud either. And I mentioned this week, he is the right quarterback for the program this year. In this moment, he is the right guy to be at the head. He still makes some plays that you look at it and you say, mental mistake, you got to fix that. The number one thing he has to fix right now is underthrowing the deep ball. It's one thing to underthrow to the back shoulder, something like that. These are throws that if you hit your guy in stride, they're still running somewhere down High Street, even as we speak, because they are so wide open. And he also failed to pull the trigger on a deep ball to JJ that would have been a touchdown had he released it. If not a touchdown, it certainly would have been a ball that he could have caught and maybe been tackled for, but he didn't pull the trigger on that. I think that's probably number one. I'm not a Will Howard hater. I am a Will Howard push you to do your very best guy.
You're trying to motivate Will Howard.
Yes, absolutely.
You're trying to motivate him, right?
Yes. And I learned from my military experience, the entire animal kingdom responds to negative reinforcement. It absolutely works 100%. The second thing is, this is a team that appears to be hitting on all cylinders right now. They did exactly what they were supposed to do today. They didn't get injured. They stayed sharp, and they put together a full game, including a blocked punt, which was a wonderful thing to see. And then on the backside, all you have to do is keep doing that, stay focused, and good things are going to happen to this team. They are far too talented to die on the vine in November.
It's like Miami's about to die on the vine against Georgia Tech. Is Michigan going to die on the vine against Indiana?
I think it's going to be closer than people expect, but I expect Indiana to win.
Again.
And Michigan's that bad. They're just bad.
They are. You're good. My man in Amsterdam, Heath Schneider.
My man, great chatting with you.
Good stuff, Heath. Appreciate it, man.
All right, brother.
Have a good one. All right, we say goodbye to my man in Amsterdam, and we say hello to the people's champ, Matt Baxendell. Good seeing you, Bax. Your initial thoughts on this game. I feel like it couldn't work out any better for Ohio State.
Are you talking about the Miami game where they're about to lose and Georgia Tech has the ball in the red zone? Because I'm listening to you and Heath finish up and Miami fumbles it, and I'm like, boy.
I might or might not have a four-leg parlay. That was my last one, Georgia Tech. Actually, all I needed was Georgia Tech to cover. I'll just be honest.
It was a 10-point.
I wish I was ballsy enough to say I picked Georgia Tech on the money line. I had Georgia Tech covering the 8.5 point spread, but that was my final leg on a four-leg parlay that I'm going to hit. So go ahead, sir.
That's exciting. I definitely took Georgia Tech too with the points, but I regret not having the sack to make the decision. I will say this: Miami has them on 3rd and long. There's a minute and a half left. They just used their last timeout. Georgia Tech may kick a field goal to go up 8 while we're live. And if I'm them, I'm like, that's a bad idea. The ACC will find a way to get Miami 8 points here. So.
Dude, I'm glad the spread's 8.5. I'm glad I have the point spread 8.5. Either I am like guaranteed to win that. I love it. All right, let's move on. All right, so I mean, goodness gracious. By the way, if Purdue's field goal kicker wasn't terrible, I would have picked the score perfectly because I picked 45-6. I'm glad I was wrong. 45-0 looks pristine. I was thinking like 38 points. I did pick Ohio State to cover because I picked Ohio State to win by 39. But I'm thinking, man, coming off an emotional win like that last week and noon kick, they know no matter what you say as a coach, these are 18 to 20, 22, 23-year-old kids. They know they're playing the worst team in the Big Ten. They know they're favored by 38 points. I was like, Ohio State's not going to come out with much juice. And they really didn't. But then they turned it on. And, again, Purdue's the worst team in the Big Ten. But still, 45-0, escaping with no injuries. Could not have gone any better for the Buckeyes.
You know, what I really liked about this game, Dave, is that a lot of points in time when the game was close-ish, we saw a lot of the younger guys out there, particularly on defense. The first drive where Purdue absolutely wimped out and kicked a field goal from the 3-yard line in a 7-0 game, which the football gods smote them for, and they missed. That drive, it was the whole backup D-line was on the field. And Georgia Tech is going to win. They just clinched it. But the whole backup D-line was on the field the whole game. C.J. Hicks was on the field the whole drive at least. You saw some of the younger guys out there. Jermaine Matthews got a whole series at corner. And Ohio State intentionally rotated in a lot of these younger guys, and I thought that was a really good thing to see.
Edric Houston, a lot to unpack. Well, not a lot to unpack. Really just 2 things to unpack. He started and played well. He made a bad penalty, but I tell you what, I'm high on Edric Houston, man. I mean, Jeremiah Smith is obviously the best freshman in the country. There was another freshman that waited till the last second to make his decision, kept Ohio State's coaches nervous, that being Edric Houston. Him moving to 3-tech, I mean, and it'd been easy to put Hero Canoe out there, like I said earlier. They put Tybo Malone in after Edric had his penalty, but I'm telling you, Bax, Edric looks good. I'll give him a pass on that penalty.
In a 45-0 game, that's fine. If that was Michigan and we're up by a touchdown, we'd all be ready to kill him. So get it out of the way here. Don't do it again, bro. That's my advice on that one. But you're right. He did play really well. I got to give him credit. He looks like a player. By the way, I know it was one catch, just like it was last week. This time he didn't juggle it. Does Jelani Thurman look different when he catches the ball? Like they threw that ball out there. It was like somebody just went out there with like Inspector Gadget arms and just caught that. It was like, who was? Oh, number 15, Jelani Thurman. He just snatched it. That ball to the sideline, his one catch today. That kid has more talent than we've seen at any tight end at Ohio State since Ricky Dudley. Wait until next year when he's going to be the top tight end option. I think he's going to be a real weapon / safety valve for whoever the new quarterback is. I really feel that way about him. Who's going to be the new quarterback? He was on the field today, and his name's Julian Sayin, but that's just my humble opinion on it. I agree with you 100%. Get more into that. Well, here's what I think Ryan Day's doing. When you and I have talked about this in the past for various quarterback competitions, he's keeping Devin Brown ahead of Sayin on the depth chart. People are like, why aren't we playing Sayin more? Why is Brown always getting the first snaps? Because Ryan Day doesn't want him to leave. He wants him here to compete for the job all the way into next fall. If Julian Sayin's out there ahead of him, then you're going to have potentially only Julian Sayin as a scholarship quarterback on the roster whenever we get into spring football. Devin Brown has to believe that he's in the mix, and he will be listed as in the mix all the way until week 1 next year. And I think it's going to be Julian Sayin, but the truth of the matter is you don't want to lose your other guy that can be an option. And that's what's going on at that position. But to me, it's very clear that Saban's going to end up being the guy. The talent is undeniable. He runs the ball every bit as well as you see from Brown. And a year stronger in this program, the extra strength you're going to see on the zip on the ball with him, to me, Saban's going to be the guy.
Let's talk about the running backs. My goodness, Travion Henderson looked great today. Your thoughts on the running back situation, Bax?
Well, Trey was so good that he was like, he was catching a deep ball, on a go route. I mean, that was something to say there, right?
Yeah, I didn't say anything like that. Yeah.
Trey ran the ball really well. It was super impressive with him. Q is obviously a hard runner. And I'll be real honest. Every time James Peoples comes on the field, every time he trucks the shit out of somebody the first time he gets the ball. Like he's a beast. So I got to say, guys, you talk about next year, there's another guy I'm excited to see get to play more because that young man is a physical runner. I love Ohio State's running back situation right now. They have the best running back situation in the country.
They also have the best number 3 wide receiver situation in the country. How is Carnell Tate the number 3 wide receiver?
Because you have J.J. Smith and Egmeka Egbuka ahead of him. That's how.
You're going to just stay in engineer mode and just be very factual on me, aren't you?
I'm a very logic. I don't, my facts don't care about your feelings here. Like at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, he's number 3 because we have them. Most teams, Carnell Tate would be everybody's number 1.
Yep. And he looks great. He blocks. Yeah. He's tough. He catches the. I love everything. You're right. Even if he was Ohio State's number 1, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah. I mean, well, not think about this year,
but
like think about it, right? We're talking about in J.J. Smith that like we have a guy that is a true freshman. We were simply looking at it like, okay, he's a freshman. Hopefully he'll be pretty good. And then it turned into he's the best player in the position, and we have multiple draft picks that were already here ahead of him. It's insanity. Like I think we all were expecting Egbuka to go out and be the number 1 guy. I was even saying that. I'm like, look, Smith's going to be really good, but we still have Egbuka. Listen, this guy's a first or second rounder. This is me in August talking. And then today I'm like, Egbuka might be a first or second rounder, but J.J. Smith is the guy, which of course he covered for last week's no touchdown week, which is weird for him by, of course, getting in the end zone again today. At one point, he was the only receiver that had a catch, and he had the first 6 catches of the wide receivers in this game. So it tells you how Will Howard's looking at him.
I'm really glad Emeka got a touchdown late because he didn't even have a reception. I'm thinking, oh, geez, like it's great that Jeremiah's stats look good and great that Carnell's finally getting his. Not finally, he got his a couple weeks ago as well. But I'm thinking, man, it'd be nice to see Emeka get a catch. How about getting him a catch and a touchdown? So that was nice. I want to ask you about this as well. 2 guys who all of us have been hard on. We all love them and want the best for them, and they've played well at times, but we feel like they've been underachievers. 5-star defensive ends. JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. It was really cool for them to see them team up on that. JTT with the fumble, the forced fumble, and Jack with the fumble recovery for the touchdown. I'd love seeing that, Bax.
Yeah, that was good to see. Look, they get criticism because they're not Nick Bosa. They're not Chase Young. They're still exceptional players. They also are exceptional players that up until the last couple of weeks, I think, have been used too much. That was another benefit today was seeing how much rotation we got in the line. I mean, gosh, Mickens had a sack. Caden Curry had one. Like the Caden Curry blocked a punt that set up a touchdown. I think that with Sawyer and JTT, there's just been a little bit too much of the 2 of them, never being off the field. And look, they're great players. They're both going to be high NFL players. They just suffer from comparisons to the Bosas and Chase Young. They're not them. That's all. It's that simple. But there's nothing wrong with players of that caliber. And it was good to see them essentially, have a goal and an assist on that touchdown. So that was nice.
Just a couple more things. We'll get you out of here. So Jim Knowles, it looks like this is definitely, we've been talking about this a lot. I mean, if there's any doubt now that this is Jim Knowles' defense,
yeah.
We even saw Mitchell Melton running that jack. It looked like an Oklahoma State defense just with much better personnel.
I mean, think about how much with blitzing we've seen the last couple of weeks here. This is no longer LJ says run four D linemen and drop 7. Like, we're not doing that anymore. And they're being the blitz packages. Like, Dave, it's legitimately like somebody else is running the defense since the Oregon game. Not from necessarily just that the results are nice. I'm not saying this because we shut out Purdue. I'm saying because if you watch the way that they're blitzing, we didn't blitz like this. And even when we bring 4, they got a sack on one play late in the game. It was maybe the 3rd quarter where The 2 down linemen on the left side of the line actually dropped back, and they brought in Jordan Hancock, who ended up with the sack, and a linebacker, and brought all the pressure from the one side across. And you saw their quarterback drop back. Our D end was on the guy in the flat that he was looking at, which forced the quarterback to hold the ball, and then Jordan Hancock sacked him. It was a disguised bring of 4. It's just more creative. It's harder for the line to work with. It's a night and day look for these offensive lines and how to block us. Like there's been very little of the, stand up and put your hands up in the air and don't really get anywhere that we were getting for the longest time from this group. And that to me means it's very clear cut that Jim Knowles has taken over this defense fully for the first time.
I'm glad I can ask you this in real time before I get you out of here. So Michigan, Indiana, we're all curious, and we still are. It's very early, still 10 minutes left in the first quarter. Indiana, I believe, got 1 first down, then had to punt. Michigan now has got a first down. They're driving, so no score. Indiana favored by 14.5. Your thoughts on the very early portion of this game, and how do you think this is going to go? Michigan at Indiana.
Michigan has no offense. That's I'm just going to put it politely as I can. Davis Warren is not good at quarterback. Their running game is hit or miss because their line is nowhere near as good as it's been in past years. And Loveland's their only guy who can catch a ball and do anything with it. So I expect Indiana to end up winning this game by about 2 touchdowns. At the end of the day, I don't think Michigan's in Indiana's class. They just don't. Michigan stinks, and they stink because they lost a lot of guys this year. And it's a lot harder to play really well and be aggressive on the ball defensively and make those perfect throws without having to read the defense when you know what's coming. They cheated the last few years. This year continues to be more proof.
I'm telling you, man, it's crazy. We're sitting here talking about things like Indiana favored by 14.5 over Michigan. Indiana being the number 8 team in the country. And I tell you,
Indiana's a playoff team, Dave.
They are.
Indiana wins this football game today. They are a playoff team.
Yep. 11-1 Indiana gets in. I understand the arguments that, like, well, they wouldn't have a quality win, this or that. As long as they don't get shellacked by Ohio State. And by the way, I just hope Ohio State wins the game. Like 11-1 Indiana's getting in. We're not talking about them getting in as like an old system or even those 8 teams. If 12 teams, really 11, they're getting in.
Well, and just be like, let's put it a different way. What's the schlubbiest team in the SEC? Like Vanderbilt?
Mississippi
South Carolina?
State?
Mississippi State. Let's say Mississippi State goes 11-1 in the SEC, and their only loss is a blowout to Bama, but everybody else they played wasn't great this year. They're getting in. It's the same thing for Indiana. Like, let's be real here. If Indiana was a different helmet, they'd be in the top 5 right now.
Right.
So Indiana will get in at 11-1.
It's funny. I hear Joel Klatt's like, oh, it's ridiculous. They're 8th. I actually thought that was good. I hear what he's saying. Like, if it was Alabama, same resume, they haven't played anybody. It's like, well, it's Alabama. Even if they would have played somebody, they would have crushed them too. They get the benefit of the doubt. You get that when you're a blue blood. I understand that. I thought it was good for Indiana backs because if they're 8th, even if they lose to Ohio State, they're not going to drop out of the top 11 with a loss at Ohio State as your only loss.
No. And Indiana, they follow what I've called for years the Oklahoma corollary, which was that in the old Big 12, if Oklahoma or Texas didn't win the conference, whoever else won the league always was 5 to 10 spots lower than they should be because they weren't the brand. And at the end of the day, Oklahoma was the brand that won most of the time. It's the Indiana corollary this year. Indiana's a better football team than a couple of teams ahead of them, including Miami. And the truth of the matter is that, Indiana, if they finish 11-1, if they beat Michigan today, they will finish 11-1. They will be the 10th or 11th seed in the playoffs. That's that simple. And I've been saying this forever that the Big Ten is going to get 4 teams in. It's going to be Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana. Over the summer, I predicted 4 of them, but I thought the 4th team would be Iowa, not Indiana. So at the end of the day, that's what we're looking at here for sure.
Well, another thing that I said all offseason, I'm like, it's a 3-game regular season for Ohio State, and I was absolutely right, but I got the 3 games wrong. Indiana's the 3rd game, not Michigan. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves on anything related to Ohio State, Michigan. Winning that football game by 1 point is sufficient in my head, but winning that football game is still the most important thing that has to happen this year for Ryan Day, because Ryan Day has to beat them. He cannot lose to Michigan no matter what. I'm not worried about it at all. I'm not worried about it at all.
I'm not necessarily worrying about it, but I don't ever take those assholes lightly after the last 3 years.
Oh, they're in for like
I was the guy who was concerned about them when Rich Rod was there, though. You remember those days.
Rude day 25. I almost said a rude awakening. They know it's coming. 21 days, Jim Tressel. 21 days. 21 days, baby.
And at about this point in time, that streak will officially be over.
Yeah, I heard this. Larry on YouTube. Yeah, I heard that. And they've been talking about that all week, about the brand. I think it's good for Indiana being 8th. They weren't going to be any higher than that. Bax, I appreciate your time, my friend, and your insights. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, sir.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks. There he is, the people's champ, Matt Baxendell. You can catch his column tomorrow on Bucknuts. It's always must-read material, The Bucket. I'll be posted first thing in the morning on Bucknuts, so make sure you get on Bucknuts and read that tomorrow. Michigan's driving on Indiana. This is the thing. Like, I stayed away from this as far as any, like, monetary action. I was like, I think Indiana's going to win, but I don't know if they're going to win by 15 or more. I still won't be surprised if they do. They've started slow a few times this year, Indiana has. Keep in mind, they started slow against hapless Maryland, then came back and smacked them. I think Indiana lost the turnover battle like 5-0 in that game and still won that game by 14. But Maryland's terrible, and Michigan, as bad as they've looked, Davis Warren looks like he is like the lesser of the evils of their terrible quarterback. So of the terrible football Michigan's played, they're playing like the least terrible now. So I wouldn't even say they're playing well, because they're not. They're playing the least terrible that they've played. So there you go. Carlos is saying they didn't look bad last game. That's fair. They didn't look good. They didn't look bad. I hear what you're saying. It's Stallion. I love Carlos's takes here. The Stallion era is over from X. All of our Facebook. First, I thought this was just somebody like trolling us. Everybody on Facebook right now, this is obviously a glitch we've had for the last couple of days, is coming through as Facebook user. Anybody commenting on Facebook, you're all coming through as Facebook user on StreamYard. StreamYard is awesome because we're able to do the show live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube all at once, and you guys can all comment. We can put your comments up, and right now all of our Facebook comments are coming in as Facebook user instead of your real name and your picture. Sorry about that. I don't know why that is, but we will figure that out. All right, we have John on YouTube. Thoughts about Northwestern? Well, I mean, they'll be a step up from Purdue. They're not terrible, but they're not good. Like, if I was doing my Big Ten power rankings, like, Purdue would be 18th out of 18. Northwestern would probably check in around 15th or 16th. It's going to be cool seeing the game in Wrigley Field. That'd be really cool. Ohio State playing a football game at Wrigley Field. That'll be awesome. Northwestern's very limited. They're well coached. You know they're going to try and muddy it up. I mean, David Braun took over a mess in Evanston last year, and what were they, 8-5 last year? I would have been shocked if they won 4 games last year. And this year they're sitting here at 4-5, a couple of wins in the Big Ten, Maryland and Purdue, but still. So you know how it is with Northwestern. They'll muddy it up. It's not at Ryan Field, which is being renovated right now, which is why they're playing at Wrigley, because they don't want to play Ohio. They don't want to have the Ohio State game at their which is their makeshift stadium, which is really a practice field that they put in. They made this a 15,000 seat stadium. It's actually really cool. It's right on Lake Michigan, but they know Ohio State fans, you're going to get like triple that at least. So they had the game at Wrigley Field. But, you know, Northwestern has a really good running back in Cam Porter. Quarterback, first-year quarterback's okay. He's a kid from Chicago, game manager type. Again, I'm impressed with David Braun, though, their head coach. Ohio State's going to win this game comfortably, in my opinion. It was close at Northwestern a couple years ago when it was like 70-degree, minus 70 wind chill, whatever it was. It wasn't minus 70. It was seriously like 50-degree winds or whatever it was, and like temperatures around like 10 degrees. So that was brutal. So anything short of that, I think Ohio State's going to grind away this game against Northwestern next week. Now, Indiana gets a bye after this game. Indiana gets a bye before they play Ohio State. I'm glad that game's in Columbus. Not that Memorial Stadium in Bloomington is exactly a house of horrors, but we call that Ohio Stadium West. But still, I agree, Facebook user. I wish I could use your guys' real name. Facebook, Henderson looks so strong. He does. He looks great. Quinshawn got the start. I love how these guys understand, too, that, like, this is good for them. It'd be very easy as a running back to be like, no, I want all the carries. I'm the man. I want all the carries. I don't want this guy. They're like completely on board with splitting the carries because they know it's good for their longevity as football players. And a lot of times, like stuff in sports, it's like, yeah, how does he not understand that's good for him? You know, but it's like your ego gets in the way or whatever else gets in the way. And even logically, if it makes sense, you don't agree with it. And these young men are completely on board with them splitting carries. Right now, Travion looks like the better back. mea culpa, I thought coming into the year, Quinshon would be the better back. And I like Quinshon a lot. So let's just keep those guys, like, as much as they get along and they're on board with everything, I think they're also pushing each other to get better. So it's just a great situation all around. And if heaven forbid one of those guys gets hurt, you got, starter 1A or 1B ready to be like the main guy. And James Peoples, as Bax was talking about, as Heater was talking about, James Peoples looks great. So it's really good they've been able to stay healthy at running back, knock on wood, literally. So, yeah, both backs are considered starters. Facebook user. Again, I wish I could use her real name. Got a lot of Facebook users here. It's so funny. On like Friday's show, I was like, there's one person checking in his Facebook user. That's got to be a bot, right? It's like, oh, then I realized, oh, that's all of our Facebook commenters is coming through his Facebook user. So that's a problem on probably StreamYard's end. We'll find out. StreamYard's probably going to blame Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg's going to blame StreamYard. We'll figure it out. Dan Rubin will get to the bottom of that. That's what Dan Rubin does. He will get to the bottom of that quickly. And eventually we'll hear from Patrick Murphy and Steve Helwagen from Ohio Stadium following post-game interviews. Curious to hear what Coach Day says, if anything, about Tyleek Williams. I imagine it's as simple as we played Purdue and we could have played him, but why? No, he's not going to say that. But hopefully Tyleek's fine. I imagine he is. He was not on the availability report, meaning he was cleared to play. Definitely a precautionary situation. Edric Houston getting his first start. Jim Knowles, again, another thing we learned, if you're just tuning in, we've learned that, I don't know what took 2.5 years, but we've learned this is Jim Knowles' defense. This isn't Jim Knowles kind of running the defense, but Larry Johnson still doing what he wants on the defensive line. Like, no, that's been – Jim Knowles has his fingerprints all over this defense. Not like 75% of it, 100% of it. And I like that. You need that. You don't need people on the – we saw it in the Oregon game too many times. Obviously, the defensive line and the back seven were not on the same page. You'd see things like 2 defensive ends rush, 2 defensive tackles drop in coverage. So you only have 2 guys rushing the quarterback, and you have man press coverage on the outside. That doesn't make any sense in football. And I've never seen that before, and it led to like long passes for Oregon. So, maybe that was a necessary evil, the loss to Oregon. Especially you consider Oregon's the number 1 team in the country. You lose by 1 point at their place at night. Should have won the game. If that's what wakes you up, I mean, that's better than losing at home to a mediocre team. And that's what Ohio State did in 2014 and still won the national championship when they lost to Virginia Tech at home. So I feel like that woke them up. It certainly made Ryan Day go and say, okay, Jim Knowles, you're now really the head coach of the defense. They've been saying he's the head coach of the defense. It's clear he now is the head coach of the defense. He's doing exactly what he did at Oklahoma State, mixing things up, including the defensive line, just with way better athletes. And have you guys noticed how Oklahoma State's defense has gotten progressively worse since Knowles has left? First year after he left, they were still good, but not nearly as good. Then they were pretty bad last year, which was his second year removed. Now, Oklahoma State's one of the worst defenses in the country. Didn't take them long after the Knowles era to go from one of the best defenses in the country, which is really crazy. Gundy never had good defenses at Oklahoma State. Offense. Knowles comes in. They're okay. And then boom, boom, boom. He had them as a top 5 overall defense his final year at Oklahoma State, which is crazy considering the Big 12 and everything, right? So then he comes to Ohio State. I know people were skeptical. It's like, oh, he does good against the bad teams, but then against the good teams. Knowles is a hell of a good defensive coordinator. Ohio State gets better every year, and yeah, they've got great talent, but still, they're one of the best defenses in the country. Are they perfect? No. But again, I think another, I don't know if Knowles takes pride. I'm sure he doesn't take pride in this, but this is it just is further proof that Knowles is the real deal. You look at Oklahoma State going from one of the best defenses in the country when he was there, 3 years later, one of the worst. Not a coincidence, my friends. Is he a recruiter? No. They have other guys to do that. So there you go. Keep firing away with your questions. Chris, good point on that. Chris says, Dave, how long do we have to endure this damn turf at Ohio Stadium? I know at first I was like, oh, there's Will Howard's one boneheaded play, right? Where he just fall. No, it really wasn't his fault. Looked like he was on like ice skates out there. Jeez. I mean, was he at Nationwide Arena playing for the Blue Jackets there? It looked like it. Trying to have football cleats on ice. Yeah, they've got to go with, and I understand it's below the floodplain, all this stuff. They have grass fields in dome stadiums. They can do it at Ohio Stadium if they wanted to. They have grass fields inside dome stadiums. They can do it at Ohio Stadium if they want to. They need to. It's a joke. Yeah, we don't need a football field that looks like an ice skating rink out there. Facebook user, I love your unique name. This team is 1-8, not impressed. Okay, I agree. I'm not impressed with Purdue. Ohio State was favored by 38. They won 45-0. I hope that you put your money on Ohio State if that is the case. Michigan takes a field. Michigan's field goal kicker is really good. See, I don't say many nice things about Michigan. Their field goal kicker is amazing. I won't be surprised if he goes pro after this year. They brought him in from, can't even remember where, like Arkansas State, somewhere. I don't think it was Arkansas State, something like that. Group of 5 schools somewhere in Deep South, and he's really, really good. I don't think 3 points is going to be enough, though, against Cignetti, Google me, and his offense. We'll see, though. We'll see. Miami going down to Georgia Tech today. How about that? Facebook user, any idea if Indiana will be a 3:30 or a night game? 3:30 CBS. Bank on it. I don't know if they've made that official yet, but we thought that was the case. And then Steve Helwagen is awesome. He broke it down scientifically. He came up with like 99.9% with all precincts reporting. Steve Helwagen can call it. Indiana, Ohio State will be 3:30 on CBS. There you go. Nobody can beat Nugent. I agree. Mike Nugent's best kicker in Ohio State history. No doubt about it. This Michigan kicker is really good, though. He really is. But, okay. Michigan needed to score a touchdown there. I mean, getting a field goal there, they had a pretty nice drive going. I mean, maybe their defense will stay up. Their defense is good, but they're playing without Will Johnson. Obviously, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant are beasts. See, I said something else nice about Michigan. That'll be it. I said 2 nice things. That's it. That's my limit. There's no 3 strikes. I won't be out. 2 nice things is my limit on Michigan. Indiana's going to win this game. I think 14.5 points was too much. Easy to say that now, and Michigan's leading 3-0, but still, Indiana's going to win this game. That was a big missed opportunity, in my opinion, by the Wolverines. All right, keep those questions coming. Apparently, Fox commentator said it's big noon. I heard that. I don't think that's accurate. I think he messed that up. It's definitely not a night game. Pretty sure it's 3:30 CBS because, I mean, think about Fox has next week's Big Ten Network, actually, but like Fox has had so many Ohio State games already, including today, including last week, I believe including the previous week. They have the Michigan game, obviously, the regular season finale. Like, it'll be CBS 3:30 for Indiana. No doubt about it. Great point. Another commenter from Facebook says, love the pressure on the quarterback today. Nice work from the defense. Yeah, and it's not just getting pressure on the quarterback. It's how they're doing it. They're not just like, okay, defensive ends, here are your moves. Bull rush. If that doesn't work, bull rush. No, they're actually like using like moves. They're doing things like stunts and twists. These are not exotic things, but it's good to see them doing it. Buckeye 80 on YouTube. Dave, your thoughts on the rotation on the defense, the defensive line, and should have started sooner? Yeah, I mean, it's easier to do it against Indiana. Yeah, I like that they've rotated more on the defensive line, to answer your question. Yes. Should have started sooner? Yes. Do I want my best players out there when the game is on the line against the best teams? Yes. I think all those things are true, but that leads into, like, you got to build up that depth so you're not getting guys gassed, so you can have your best players out there in the fourth quarter if the game's on the line. And I think it's a good sign that Edric Houston's out there. We don't need him getting stupid penalties, but that's a true freshman mistake. A veteran does that, you're going to be like, what the heck? If he keeps doing it, you're going to be like, what the heck? If it's a one-time thing, all right. He looks good, doesn't he? And he doesn't look like he's physically a true freshman, especially a guy that moves from defensive end inside to D tackle. He looks like he's every bit as physical as you'd want from a 3-tech DT. So I feel good about this team overall. They're exactly where they want to be. They're exactly where they want to be. If they win out, they're going to be the number 1 seed. And by the way, winning out means beating Indiana. They're going to be heavily favored against. Heavily favored, you know what I mean? A couple touchdowns. Probably, right? Right now it's like 10.5. I bet that goes up. If you look at the look ahead line, 10.5, something like that, Ohio State. I bet that goes up, especially if Indiana keeps looking shaky. They're going to be favored by double digits. They are favored by double digits over Indiana. They're favored by double digits over Michigan as well. Okay, that puts them in the Big Ten championship game if they take care of business against Northwestern, Indiana, and Michigan, which I'm very confident they will be. That puts them at 11-1 in the Big Ten championship game, rematch against Oregon. Ohio State will be favored in that game in Indy. I bet it'll be 80-20, maybe more Ohio State fans. So Oregon had the home field advantage first time. It's not quite like getting them at Ohio Stadium, but next best thing. So doesn't mean Ohio State's going to win the game. They'll be favored. But Ohio State was favored in Eugene as well. So, and Oregon's legit. I like Ohio State's chances if that materializes, is my point. I like Ohio State's chances in a rematch against Oregon. And then, if they're sitting there at 12-1, they'll be the number 1 seed in the CFP. It'll be like that game in Eugene never happened. If they were 13-0 or 12-1, it wouldn't even matter. It'd be Big Ten champs. Either way, the goal is beat Michigan, win the Big Ten title. 2 of the 3 would be out of the way. Then you're 3 wins away. In that first game, you're the number 1 seed. You're playing the 8 seed or the 9 seed. Probably, I have to look at it. Would that be at the Rose Bowl? I'll have to look at it. I think that is the Rose Bowl have a quarterfinal game this year. I believe so. Travis on YouTube. Any update on Carson Hinsman? I do not personally. We'll hear from Patrick and Steve soon. Let's see. Let me check in with these guys, see how things are going. I imagine when things go this well, I cover games. I mean, this is only my second, third year, not going over there for every game. I covered games at Ohio Stadium for years. When they win like this, it's like a party over there. They're going to be doing interviews for a while. Every assistant coach is going to want to come out, every player. I'm being kind of facetious, but you win 45-0. A lot of people are going to want to talk to the media. So probably a long press conference. If you lose or you win ugly, it could be kind of a shorter press conference. A game like this, everybody's going to be coming out. We used to talk. Wagon used to joke Ed Warner, if they lost or if it was close, would be, you couldn't find Ed Warner. If they won and they ran the ball well, Ed Warner would sit there in the media room. They have to be yelling up, Ed, the bus is leaving. Ed, you got to come down. The bus is leaving. So it was hit or miss with Mr. Ed Warner. By the way, Ed Warner, I think a lot of people have bad memories of him. Obviously over his head as an offensive line coach or offensive coordinator. He was a good O-line coach, though. Very good. Sauce the ribs when they won the national championship. Ed Warner was the offensive line coach. So we'll see what happens. Indiana has the ball, still down 3-0 late in the first quarter at home against Michigan. I had to laugh. I was looking at, I think it was the ESPN box scores. And I was looking at they have right there, cheapest ticket available for this game or whatever. Tickets available from it was $260 was the cheapest ticket for an Indiana football game at home. I'm like, whoever thought you'd see this? And it's not like they're playing against a fellow top 10 team. They're playing against 5-4 Michigan. Indiana inside the 10 with a chance to go up here. We'll see if they can get it done. But Ohio State 45-0. I don't think this game could have gone any better from the Buckeyes' perspective. I guess they could have had a punt return or a kick return for a touchdown. We keep talking about that, but touchdown Hoosiers. How about that? They had a blocked punt. We've been saying, do they even try and block punts anymore? Are they afraid to get the penalty, so they don't even try? And I don't know if they were trying to sell out to block it or if Caden Curry just beat his man or if both things were true. That was good to see them block a punt. It's good to see Patrick Murphy. I'm glad you're upside down. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good. Better after that second half of the Buckeyes where would they score 4 touchdowns in 4 minutes and 2 seconds, I think is what the graphic said. So
it was good.
Came alive.
I was okay with 21-0 at halftime, but 24-0 at halftime is even better. And Patrick, my prediction was 45-6. So Purdue's kicker was like you and it knew how to kick.
I had 48.
I would have got it exactly right. You had 48-0, didn't you?
Yeah. So I needed Jaden Fielding out there one last time late, but they decided to, not do that. How about Julian Sayin coming in the middle of a drive on 3rd down to pick up a first down? I don't think I've ever seen that one before.
I liked it. I liked it.
Interesting.
He's got something tells me he's the future. We'll see.
Yeah.
We shall see. Okay, I love hearing about anything they say about injuries, right? Like they're going to really get in depth. Anything about Carson Hinsman? Is he all right?
Yeah, he played the second half. I don't even know if Ryan Day was asked about him, to be honest, but sounds like he's fine. While we're on the topic, Tyreek Williams, I feel like we could press rewind and play the response from Day. He could have played. They held him out for precautionary reasons. He should be full go next week, so nothing to worry about there. He warmed up. It looked like he was going to play, even though we've seen the story a bunch of times, and it played out exactly how expected, where he didn't play because it was a blowout.
Apparently my CBS feed is behind. People are saying I'm watching on delay. I thought I had it on live. Perhaps I am, but or maybe I just let you guys know late. Tyreek Williams could have played.
Yep.
Did not get into that. That was precautionary. Then Edric Houston gets the start over Hero Canoe, over Tywone Malone. Looked good, and then had a boneheaded penalty. But get into all that. Tyreek Williams and Edric Houston.
Yeah. Tyreek will be back next week. No issues there. Precautionary, like you said. Edric Houston, interesting. I mean, this is a guy who was a defensive end coming in, 5-star, really only played, I think, his first snaps at defensive tackle a couple weeks ago against Nebraska. I do wonder if that was part of the re-engineering of the defense, as Ryan Day called it, of like, hey, we've got a guy here that could do some things if we need him to. He doesn't have to be off the edge, because he was playing kind of in mop-up duty earlier. He had that knockdown in one of the first couple games. So he was playing off the edge. I think, it's an interesting move, and that he's playing ahead of some of these guys who obviously have had more experience. He clearly has flashed in practice. We've heard that. But enough to start over some of those more veteran guys that you mentioned. I didn't expect that to be the way they went about it. But yeah, other than the penalty, which, Ryan Day kind of chalked up to, he's got to learn from that. We can't have that happening. I thought it was a pretty solid day in there. Purdue was able to get some runs, some of them coming when Edric Houston wasn't in the game. But all in all, for a first time starting at a position he probably hasn't been playing that long, I think it was pretty well done.
Pat, you and I talked a lot this week that we felt like, Ryan Day had said the last 2.5 years of Jim Knowles as the head coach of the defense, but like there seemed to be a disconnect with him and LJ, no matter what they said publicly. We didn't see that the last 2 weeks. We sure didn't see it today. It looked like the Oklahoma State defense when they were cooking, but with better athletes out there, right to Mitchell Melton, like using and not that the jack was effective, but the point is Jim Knowles now has complete control over this defense. I don't know what took so long. Obviously the Oregon game. That's what took so long. I just answered my own question, but like this is clearly Jim Knowles' defense now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't want to say it wasn't his defense before. I think they were just trying to kind of make things work with what was already here. That's that fair. Includes Larry Johnson and the defensive linemen. And I think after the Oregon game, it was like, okay, we'll still use this personnel, but I if I'm Jim Knowles, which I'm not, by the way, I need to be able to do some of these things. We need to. We need to be able to do the things that I want to call and stuff like that. And I think Ryan Day recognized that why it took until the Oregon game, probably because they played pretty good defense last year. Now, granted, the offenses they played in retrospect weren't great, but I still think you see what this defense is, even in the Oregon game. Aside from those two big plays given up by Denzel Burke, you had a pretty solid game defensively if those don't happen. And so you clean that up. I think Denzel Burke's played better, though he did give up that, I think it was like a 28-yard reception today.
That was just a hell of a catch.
It was. I did think that Denzel, as he's sort of bobbling that ball, like, go lay a hit there. But, I'm not a corner. We don't need to get into a Denzel conversation here. He played fine today. But yeah, I think that this definitely has been, turned over a little bit more to, okay, yes, we've tried to marry two things together. It hasn't been as effective as we want to be. We got to pick one side or the other. And, they're starting to blend a bit more. Like you said, the jack in there when Mitchell Melton's in with some of the second teamers. And yeah, well, I think, we'll find out in 2 weeks against Indiana and that offense kind of where they stand, because Penn State didn't really stress them on the outside. They did some other good things that I think were important, defending Tyler Warren, shutting down that run game. That all is very important because that's where Penn State's strong. But yeah, we won't know how these cornerbacks have grown and the secondary from the Oregon game until 2 weeks from now.
Speaking of Indiana, they lead 7-3 over Michigan. They're forcing a punt. Indiana will get the ball back late in the first quarter at home, up 7-3. I'm going to get your thoughts on Will Howard. At first, when he slipped on that play, I'm like, oh, there's Will Howard's one boneheaded play. I don't think that was on him. That looked like he was trying to run it like Nationwide Arena, like he's playing for the Blue Jackets with like football cleats on. The field's a mess, but I think overall, man, Will Howard continues to impress me. I'm surprised they ran the quarterback as much as they did today, but it continues to be a very effective part of this offense. Just your thoughts on Will Howard, how he played today, and just what you see overall from Big Willie style.
I'm glad you brought up the slipping and the turf. I've talked to, as you know, Ross Bjork when I had him on the Bucknuts Happy Hour about the turf, and he said that he doesn't believe the turf is an issue. They've put new stuff in it, whatever the little pellets are. Will Howard brought this up sort of unprompted, that he needs to get new cleats this week, is what he said. He's slipping too much and looking unathletic. I tweeted during the game, Will Howard was slipping last week at Penn State. Now, that grass was a little wet, at least early in the game. He slipped at Oregon as well. So, and some other guys have had some issues too. And look, I'm not defending the turf necessarily. I'm just telling you what I was told. But I do think this may be more of a Will Howard needs to get the right shoe equipment on, because it has happened.
Himself, there's a lot of validity to that. I'm glad you're bringing that to the table, because it looks like the field's a mess, but we're probably going on what we've seen in past years.
Yeah.
Guys are going to slip every once in a while, but it's maybe with what Ross Bjork told you and what Will Howard's saying himself, maybe it is. He just needs to get like longer cleats.
Yeah. And I don't know what the answer is exactly, because I don't know what he's wearing in terms of cleats. I did in a past life sell sporting shoes, though they were soccer shoes. So there's definitely certain things he could do, but he did kind of own it that he's getting new cleats this week. He did not. He brought up a couple times that slip, and he was clearly not pleased with it, because I do think if he doesn't slip, there's a hole there, right, to take off and run. So but in terms of just his overall performance, I think this is Will Howard. I think he could have put that deep pass to Carnell Tate a little bit further out. Carnell Tate also could have caught the ball, even though it was underthrown. But the throw to Travion Henderson right down here in the beginning of the fourth quarter to set up the Emeka Egbuka touchdown was about as spot on as you get. And
how about his first completion of the game to Jeremiah Smith, that 25-yard pass down the sideline? You could not have thrown that ball any better.
Right. And that was the only good thing about that first drive, because that was they said they wanted to come out and start well, and they did not. But at least you got that. Got Jeremiah 2 catches closer to breaking the record, which he did. Then he broke another record. The kid's nuts. We can talk about him separately. But yes, no, I thought Will Howard played well. I think that the thing to remember with Will Howard, and really most of the quarterbacks, these upperclassmen quarterbacks that are in the transfer portal, there's a reason they're in the transfer portal and not in the NFL, right? There are things that they do that they felt they need to come back and improve on, or the NFL teams didn't like. Dylan Gabriel, even the quarterbacks last year at Washington and Oregon, Bo Nix and Michael Penix, like neither were perfect. And at times last year, you saw that. Will Howard does a lot of things really well, but there are some things that are going to, maybe make you throw something in your apartment one day, or if you're sitting in whatever it may be, because he's not a perfect quarterback, or he'd be in the NFL with CJ Stroud and Justin Fields and those guys. So, not every time you get a transfer portal quarterback is going to work out like Justin Fields, but I think Will Howard, the things he does bring, his legs, some of those throws we talked about, his leadership, you've talked about that before, Dave. I think that's all really important for this team. And as we've talked about since he got here, the weapons around him are certainly elevating his game, and he's elevating them as well. I think that should be said too.
For some perspective, I was on the USC board the other day, and they're actually very reasonable. The USC board on 24/7, they were like really, really resenting the fact that they didn't get Will Howard in the trade. They were like, well, he wanted to come here, but Lincoln was sold on Miller Moss. Now we're benching Miller. They were like basically just like going off that they didn't have Will Howard. I'm like, so there you go. Buckeye fans, you have Will Howard, and we have Patrick Murphy. We're soon going to have Steve Helwagen. Pat, we'll let you go. I appreciate your insights, my friend.
Absolutely. I think that is interesting, the USC stuff, because obviously that's Lincoln Riley, Ryan Day kind of tied together as young, up-and-coming offensive coordinator, quarterback guys who have now become head coaches, and they both were interested in him, right? And And I don't pretend to know exactly how it all worked when they were recruiting him, but Ohio State seems to be in the better situation, no doubt about it.
And who knows, maybe that bowl game was bad news for USC because Miller Moss looked great in that bowl game. Was it the Holiday Bowl?
Something
And
like that. Imagine
ever since. Yeah.
Imagine if Devin Brown doesn't get hurt and plays really well in that game. Now, maybe Devin Brown carries that over into this year and it's not a Miller Moss conversation, but that could have changed some things. And maybe Ohio State comes out on the better end of that. And this is not a slight on Devin Brown, but just comes out on the better end of that for this team, even though you lose the Cotton Bowl and put out a pathetic offensive performance.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. Great stuff, Pat. Appreciate it, man.
All right, see you, Dave.
Pat Murphy, live from Ohio Stadium. Speaking of Ohio Stadium, let's bring in Steve Helwagen, live from Ohio Stadium. Steve, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. I need to send our Pat Murphy a quick text just to let him know something.
You send him a text. I'll talk a little bit while you're sending Pat.
Just 1 second.
You take your time. We got Dan on YouTube saying Lincoln Riley is being exposed as a fraud. He is. Who would have thought we'd look at the 4 teams coming into the Big Ten from the West Coast and be like, that team from LA kind of sucks. They're holding everybody down. UCLA, right? No, USC. I mean, neither one of them are good, but right now UCLA is actually playing better football than USC, which is insane to me. And it's also not lost on me that USC beat LSU this year, which is hilarious. Hello, early season football, but still.
I got him taken care of.
All right, cool. All right, so your takeaways from the press conference, anything from the game? The floor is yours, sir.
This was just a very business-like performance, and I think after what you saw here 2 weeks ago against Nebraska, this was exactly what you wanted to see out of this team. My goodness, 2 weeks ago, this was so much better than what we saw that day against Nebraska. That game went all the way down to the wire. This one was pretty well decided at halftime when Ohio State was ahead 21-0, and Purdue offensively wasn't. They did move the ball. And again, credit to the defense. Another stop inside the 5-yard line. They put the reserves in on the third series on defense, and Purdue marched it 72 yards down to the 3-yard line. But once again, the defense gets credit for a stop inside the 5-yard line with no points. Unbelievable. The guy, shanks a 21-yard field goal. What can you do about that? And it was just that kind of day. It's just that kind of year. It's just that kind of decade, I think, for Purdue. What can you say? I mean, this was, as bad. I guess the first shutout for Ohio State in a Big Ten game in 7 years. Not sure who the lucky team was in 2017 that didn't score any points against Ohio State in a Big Ten game. But, this is pretty heady stuff that we saw here today.
Let's go back. This won't go back to 2017. I got my Phil Steele from last year. Let's go back to 2017 probably. That just goes back to 18. Probably Rutgers or some terrible team like that. I want to make sure I'm not misspeaking. So injury-wise, we're all good, right? Everything's fine?
Yeah, as far as I know, Carson Hinsman left the game right before halftime, but he was back out there in the third quarter. Tyleik Williams could have played but did not. No reason for him to play in this game. Edric Houston was having a hell of a game going until he got that personal foul, which again, like the guy at Penn State last week, you can't do that. After the play's over, take your win, get off the field, and
right.
That's a lesson he learned. And I don't know if he did return. It was really late in the game, so they told him to go have a seat. So they gave him the gift of a lifetime, and he gave it back to him. I guess I don't know, but because he played quite a bit early.
That's a lot that he started. I mean,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. No doubt. Ahead of Canoe, perhaps. You say, maybe they're different positions or whatever, but I don't know. 45-0. I mean, it didn't start out that way. Obviously, it was 7-0 after the first quarter, and you're like, man, this. And they got the touchdown after a blocked punt. It was like it wasn't because of anything the offense did. So, it took them 4 downs to punch it in from the 8-yard line. I don't know. It just it built slowly, and then it was an avalanche, and that's what you wanted to see. Going to Northwestern next week. It'll be at Wrigley Field. I presume 38,000 people, and 30,000 of them will be Buckeye people, and should be a hell of a scene out there. although it's an 11 a.m. game in Chicago, a noon Eastern time game, so not a lot of time to fill up the bars around Wrigleyville ahead of time. But
well, you'll get to see. Here's my thing, though.
Plenty of time afterward, though.
You'll get to see an Ohio team win inside Wrigley Field for a change.
Yeah, there you go.
When we watch our Reds there, now obviously it'll be different moving forward with Tito Francona. They're going to win multiple.
Exactly.
Games. But in the past, it hasn't gone. When we've gone to see the Reds play the Cubs, Big Ten media days, it usually doesn't go well for the Reds.
Doesn't go well. Yeah, it hasn't gone well. But yeah, hopefully, the Ohio team will win there. I presume they're going to be like a 25 to 28 point favorite. So yeah, I mean they are a force of nature right now. That's for sure. They are playing really good football. And again, I spoke to the Agonis Club yesterday, and it's like, okay, you beat Penn State and you're here. You can't play Purdue tomorrow and go down to their level here like you did against Nebraska and screw around. No, I think they kept it at that level or above. And then now next week you need to keep it at that level or above because Indiana, I don't know what the score is early. I know Michigan had the ball at the 3-yard line.
7-3 Indiana driving.
They held them to a field goal on that possession inside the 5-yard line.
Indiana in Michigan territory. First down inside the 40. Hoosiers just picked up a big third down.
Yeah.
Indiana's looking good, buddy. They're going to be coming here 10-0.
10-0, and
they got to win this one, but they're looking
probably
good.
In the top 5 by then as teams. Miami, goodbye. Miami's got to go below them.
Everybody in the chat, wave goodbye to Miami. Everybody,
bye Miami.
Bye Miami. Bye Miami.
They may not even win the ACC because SMU's pretty good. So
touchdown Indiana.
14 to 3.
Oh, the Hoosiers.
10-0. They're going to burn down B-Town tonight.
Oh, man.
Both of those goalposts are coming down, although I don't know that 50,000 people are enough to do that. But, just a little shot at our friends to the west. But
Steve, I've nicknamed Michigan secondary Lake Michigan. You know why? Because it's filled with fish.
Yeah. Will Johnson, healthy scratch, draft prep.
They just ran a simple route here. Curtis Work, formerly from Ohio University. They didn't even do anything. It just ran a little stutter step. This dude beat him by like 10 yards for the easiest touchdown you'll ever see. Because Lake Michigan will happen. Their secondary is filled with fish.
Will not happen.
How many days?
I wonder if he just shuts it down. I wonder if he just says, good day, yeah. Good day, yeah.
Lake Michigan. I tell you what, how many days? 21 days, Jim Tressel. Steve, I'll get you out of here. I know you got work to do. I appreciate it, man.
All right. If that's it, that's all we got. I can't think. I want to tell you, I'm going to use the S word here, Dave. So prepare the bleep button. But JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer have taken an inordinate amount of shit, and I've been one of the people who've heaped it on them at times. But I'm going to tell you what, buddy. Those two guys came to play today. They were fired out of a cannon, and they got to know Hudson Card up close and very personal like today. Even, not a ton of sacks, only 4, but and 4 is a good number. But they played their balls off today. And those guys, they're counting them down. 2 games left in the shoe as seniors, and they left it all out there today. Those 2 guys deserve it. And for them to team up on a touchdown the way that they did, what a fitting way for them to kind of, begin to close out their time here at Ohio Stadium, because that was probably one of the better games those 2 guys have played in their career, I thought, today.
Well said, Steve. I'm sure they're going to have better memories later this season. They'll look back, but they'll always have that play that they teamed up on. The former 5 stars, the seniors, in their third to last game at Ohio Stadium.
Yep.
With the sack or with the fumble recovery for the touchdown. JTT causing the fumble. Jack.
I think Lathan Ransom is first team All Big Ten, and you can shoot me for saying that. There's 36 safeties starting in the Big Ten this year at 18 schools, but I think Ohio State's got number 1 and number 2. I don't know. Lathan Ransom is something, buddy. All he does is make football plays. And that interception at the goal line was great.
That was huge.
And helped preserve the shutout. And, Davison Igbinosun.
Jermaine Matthews played well. I haven't mentioned that. We
Yeah.
learned Jermaine Matthews. I'm so glad I finally got this in. Jermaine Matthews played well. I'm glad to see him get a lot of playing time as well.
Yep, a lot of young guys. A lot of young guys got some time today. So,
yep.
All right, Dave, I'm going to get to work.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, see you later.
Steve Helwagen live from Ohio Stadium. Got a lot of consistency on our Bucknut staff. Been working with Steve for years. Been working with Dan Rubin for years. Been working with Bill Kurlick for years. Been working with Pat Murphy. He's the newest member of our staff. He's been here for over 8 years now. We got a lot of consistency at Buck Rational Observers. No, it's Buck Nuts. But I appreciate all you guys tuning in. We'll close the show now. Thanks to all my guests. Thank you to Heater. Thanks to Bax. Thanks to Patrick Murphy. And thanks to Steve Helwagen. And of course, thanks to all of you. Really appreciate it. I'll be with you on Monday with Dan Rubin for the Bucknuts Morning 5. Again, thanks to all my guests. Thanks to all of you. Ohio State 45, Purdue nothing. Buckeyes will go to Wrigley Field next week to play Northwestern. Again, thanks to Heater, Bax, Pat, Steve, and all of you. I am Dave Biddle. Hope everyone has a great rest of your weekend. Go Bucks.